Hey, listeners, we're back again. It's just Kyle and I, and keeping it real today. We talk leadership all the time. That's our favorite thing to talk about. And today, I wanted to just do something a little bit different because there's so much to leadership that's not being a leader, right? There's so much that makes up who you are as a human being, who you are as a spouse, who you are as a parent, a coworker, a friend, and all of that really plays into also who you are as a leader. So, just kind of wanted to go in a different direction today and talk less about leadership and just about life. And a topic that Kyle and I kind of pitched around a little bit was regret. What does 80-year-old Kerry regret? What does 90-year-old Kyle regret? Because I'm
Phew.
sure you're gonna live longer than me for sure. And when we're recording this podcast in 50 years,
Yeah.
what do we look back and say we regretted? And so many times when people are on their deathbed and, they know their time is near the end, and what do people commonly say? The things about spending time with their family, or they should have worked less or worried less. And I just wanted to talk about it today and see where this conversation goes and see if we can offer any words of wisdom to listeners, or maybe just chat it out amongst ourselves. So one day we don't have big regrets and we lived the life that we wanted to live.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes where I think we're going to go deep. And I think that's part of being a good leader and knowing who you really are is being able to reflect deeply on your life, where you're at now, where you want to be, how you're going to get there, and all these other things that just play into it. And, as you said, it's not specifically talking about leadership, but this absolutely has everything to do with it, to be able to have these hard conversations with yourself and with your loved ones, really examine the things you've done, the things you want to do, what's keeping you from doing the things you want to do, and all those things. And it could be a scary conversation to have. And I think a lot of people over the years, we just are afraid to have these conversations because, stepping outside of comfort zones or looking at things you want to do and taking that step, it's usually, we make decisions based on fear, and fear stops us in our tracks a lot of times. We don't want to expose our weaknesses, and that could be a challenge. So I'm looking forward to where this is going to go. And the regrets are, it's one of those things, as you were talking about, we hear and you could see all the reels and the quotes of people, as they come to the end of their life. It's not really when they have regrets. It's not really what they did. It's what they didn't do, where their regrets lie. So, wherever you are in your life, these teens, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, wherever, it's looking back and it's like, what do you want to do and how are you going to get there? And is there anything stopping you? Because we've learned time and time again, we regret the things that we don't do. So I think there's going to be a lot here, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're talking about playing it safe and all of that, the regrets of what you didn't do. And I hear a lot of times, and I wonder if it's different for men and women. I hear a lot of
Yeah.
men say, they regret working so much in their career and their ambitions and all of those things. But I wonder for women, is that sometimes different? Do some women regret maybe not going after a career, or not, they had this dream to do some big thing professionally, and they didn't do that. They, for whatever reason, time or money or, raising babies and all the things that take up, our bandwidth. Is that for women different? Is it different for women and men? And I guess that kind of goes 100 different ways, but I do think a lot of times it is about what you didn't get to do and you played it safe, or, maybe you got stuck working this job and you're like, man, at this point, I'm 30, 40, whatever it is. I don't have time to go back to nursing school, or I don't have time to go. I wish I could have gone to PA school, or I wish I would have started my own business, or I wish I would have written the book. This is interesting that this coincided with today's topic. Is I get prompts from Mel Robbins. And somehow I signed up for something on Instagram where she sends me private messages. I know it's not her, but and one today was like, you could send her a video message and say, what is one thing you feel like you're too old to do, or like you need some, like, encouragement to do, and you could, like, send her a video message, and then she would pick some to answer or whatever. So today, which randomly enough, before we even talked about doing this topic, I sent her one. I was like, "I really wanna write a book, but I don't know if I have it in me." Like, I'm almost 46. I'm tired. Like, I don't know that I have it in me, but, like, if she had any advice for that, I would love it. So but yeah, I do think it's a lot of that, not taking risks, or waiting until the right time, waiting until the time is right, and then it passes you by, and, there's never a right time, and we've talked about this when we talked about comfort, is there's just sometimes there's not the right time.
Yeah, you look at all the things, and I think it's very easy as especially as you get older and life happens, and I think this is, for our younger listeners, this is things to take note of because this is just all based on experience. And as we continue and our kids get bigger, and you don't have kids yet, like these are the things that start to happen. And it's very easy to start playing it safe, right? Not taking the shot, staying comfortable too long. Sometimes for me, it's like, well, I have to provide for my family. Every decision we make as parents, it just doesn't affect me anymore. So now you're taking all this stuff into the calculation, and it's like, okay, how much risk could I put my family at if I want to go take this
Yeah.
shot? If I want to go do this, are they going to stand behind me? Which they would, but still, like, and it's that fear, right? That fear stops you because you're like, well, what if it fails? And then what? Right? I had everything, I was able to take care of them, and now I'm not, and that's where the fear stops you because the other question is, well, what if it succeeds? And what if it's everything that it was supposed to be? And what if it led you to the life that you were meant to live and you really got to dive into that purpose? Then it was all worth it. But man, you talk about taking that step, and it's scary. And the interesting part is at the end of life, most people don't regret if they fail, they regret never trying. So it's like, again, we know all these
Yeah.
things, we read these things and we see these things, but still, like, when that opportunity shows up, or maybe not even an opportunity, it's like, hey, we're packing up, we're selling everything, we're moving, like, we're doing it, let's go. It's just that, man, it can fail, and it's like the burden and the fear of that is it stops you dead in your tracks, and you're like, "Man, can we do this?" And it's just scary, and it's like, is this one of those things you'd regret when you're older? And we're not saying, like, every instinct you get to go do this and go do that, like, go run out and do it. Like, we have to use some logic and some of our background and experience and assessment and analysis of situations to make an educated decision, sure, but it's just so different the older you get, because you and like you said, you're tired, right? We get tired. And I look back on my
Yeah.
career and, everything that I've done, I was just telling my wife, I was like, man, I'm just tired today. And I feel like I'm saying that a little bit more and more these days. But it's like you look back, and I think sometimes it's okay to be tired, and everything that I've accomplished over my life, and my wife and I, and the things we've overcome, and the things that we've done. I'm like, I think it's okay to be tired for a little bit. But at some point, it's like taking a sabbatical for like 2 or 3 months, 4 months. You can't be tired forever. Like, you got to pick it up and keep going. But yeah, letting fear make your decisions, I think, is it's hard to not let fear make the decisions in this day and age.
Yeah, especially when you're really trying to balance. I see so many, career parents trying to balance exactly what we're
Yeah.
talking about is spending enough time, meaningful time with my family, but providing for them, right? And filling my cup with, things I'm passionate about and making sure that, I'm fulfilled, because I think that's important too. And it's like where is the like recipe book or like the breakdown? I need this percent of my time to be this and
Yeah.
this percent of
Yeah.
my time to be, and it changes, right?
Yeah.
It
Oh, yeah.
changes. Like when my son was young, I I would feel so guilty, trying to go do anything, that pulled me away from him for more than like, because I was on shift. So he was, and his dad was on shift at that point too. And so it was like, he was going to a sitter or to a family member's house 24 hours. And then if I had a meeting the next day or whatever. And then, he fast forward now to where you and I are with traveling. And man, those first few times that you and I traveled around the country, I was like, going crazy, like, am I doing the right thing? I'm leaving him at home, and and then I'm trying to juggle, you know, who's he staying with tonight? Because like, if somebody's on shift, or like, how's he getting to school? Who's picking him up from the bus? Or is there food for everybody to eat? Just all that mental load that goes with parenting. But, if I wouldn't have done those things and I wouldn't have gotten to where we are now, I think I would have felt that I missed out, right? So
Mm,
it's just such a balance no matter what, even if you don't have kids, there's this balance of, are you spending enough time with aging parents, right? Are you spending enough time with siblings? It's such a balance, and I wish that I had a magical recipe that I could share with everyone, but I think it's such a personal decision, and you really have to plot it out. Like for me, I have to
yeah.
plot. I can't wing a lot of that stuff. I have to be very, very intentional with my time that but now, and then eventually you'll get to this stage, Kyle, you're not there, and you have a teenager, and you have to go to their room to see them because they go in their room and then they just want to hang out with their friends. And then you get to this stage of life where I'm at, where I'm like, I need something to do. So I started doing puzzles, and it's the most old lady thing ever. But I started
Puzzles are
doing
cool.
puzzles. But yeah, I you know, I it is it's such a stage of different stages of life at how you have to look at all of these things and look at regret and pushing yourself and taking challenges. But like, I look back, like, at the stage you're at now, Kyle, is there anything, and this is personal, right? So you can share or what not share, whatever. Like, is there anything you regret about raising your girls? Like, yet, like, so far?
No. No,
No?
I wouldn't say so. I think there's things I wanna do,
Mhm.
Nikki and I talk about it, and I there's always this quote when it comes to raising your kids, yeah, and I'm gonna probably destroy it, and we might have talked about it before. Good times or hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. So we have to create warriors. And I think my wife and I have done a great job as a team in raising our kids and the decisions we've made. But at the same token, with that said, they've lived, I would say, a very comfortable life, a very different life than I've lived. And their essence of what normal is, and I'll say it pretty easy in terms of things. So I'm like, how are we going to challenge them? Like, we have to really think about how we're going to make warriors, and how we're going to challenge them and build their resilience, not just in what the world, is showing us today, but beyond that, like, how do we make them uncomfortable? How do we make them figure out problems? And I'm not talking about the small things, cleaning the room or setting the schedule, like grander scale. And we solely talked about moving for the mere fact, not even for us, but for them, and how much they wouldn't want to move. But it's going to teach them a lot of things. And as parents, our job is to prepare our kids to become adults, and how hard it could be, and to see them struggle could be a challenge. But at the same token, it's like, how else do you initiate that type of stimulus, right, to challenge your kids? So that's kind of one of the things. I'm commonly asked, if serving time in the military, career choices now. A lot of people would always ask me, "Do you regret it? Do you regret serving and going in?" And I always answered it the same way, and I was like, "Well, no, but knowing what I know now, I would not have made the same decisions. But I wouldn't know what I know now if I didn't walk those paths, right?"
Yes,
So
yes.
it's really hard to say I regret those decisions when they've gotten me to the point. Because no way at 18 years old would I have this head on my shoulders, right? Life teaches us a lot of things. Life does teach us things, and the places we go and the experiences we have are valuable, right? A lot of times it's training ground for our purpose and what we're supposed to do. So that's kind of like when I look at the kids and where we're at, and what's next, it's kind of just up in the air. We're starting to have discussions. I've talked to you about it, of what is next, and that next is coming very soon for us. Uh, I don't know, and but I will tell you, it's that fear and that comfort that really is always that, right? It's like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, like boom, boom, like do this, and you're like, no, stay comfortable, and it's like, and sometimes you're ready to take that leap, and then like reality sets in and logic takes over your brain, and you're like, nope, well, I'm going to
Yeah.
stay comfortable. We're good. Like, we're going to just keep going down this road. But Yeah, you look at how short life is, and I think one of the biggest things is for everybody is like, what's your compass? Like, where are you pointed towards? And I think that comes down to who you are. And if you don't know that, then it's hard to understand like what potential regrets lie ahead of you. And I think that's really the first important part. Like, and we've talked about it time and time again about not putting your identity in your job, having the hard conversation, just not being comfortable, like getting uncomfortable. We've talked about all that stuff. And we'll continue to talk about all that stuff because I think it's very important. But like, what's your driving force? What are you looking for? Like, what do you want to be remembered as? I don't like using the word legacy, but what is most important, And I think for me and you and through life, we look at our families, right? Like that's it. And I think I've said on this show, I need three people to show up at my funeral: my wife and my two kids. That's it, right? I don't care about anything else. I care about what they think about me and what I'm doing for them. So it's like, and that's my compass. That's my driving force. And that's where I look because the time with the ones we love, I think is the one thing that is just the most valuable thing in the world that it is going to be the hardest thing to lose. When you don't have those loved ones next to you or, you're taking your last breaths, whatever, it's those memories and those times that you get to spend with people. And it's so much in our world today can take that away from us because the world tells us and society tells us, look here, chase this, do this, right? When we were going up in school, it was go to college, white picket fence, nice house, like the American dream. And I think what's cool is I think the younger generation is redefining what that is, and it's chasing time, right? Time that is always ticking away. But where are we going to go place our time? I think becomes one of the most valuable things.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll be at your funeral, Kyle.
Thanks, Carrie.
You're
I thought I
welcome.
was living at 90 though,
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But it's
No,
just interesting, I'm sorry to cut you off. It's
no,
just
you're good.
like this thought is just
Go.
just how generations have changed, like, and what people chase and what it really matters at the end of your life. Like, it's just, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about this. It's just very intriguing to me. And it's like the simplicity of life has gotten lost at some point. And if we start thinking of the simplicity of life and raising families and being together as a community of people and having conversations, like that's it. That's it. Like that's all I think anybody needs. Real relationships, loving family, like chase that, Those are I believe those are the things people would regret most in life when they're taking their last breaths is not having that.
Yeah, and I think our jobs, at least for me personally, because my family has commented on this for my whole life, like my whole career, the whole time I've been in this career is uh, I have always taken every opportunity to go and do something. So, like, even to the point where it's like I was not saving money. I was experiencing the things. I was going to go do and travel and do all the things, go to all the concerts, go to all the whatever amusement parks, vacations, every beach I could get my feet in the sand at. Because I think we live in this world where we're very aware of death. We're very aware of how short life is and
Mhm.
how very quickly things can change for families. And I think starting in this career so early, I was started as a volunteer when I was 20. So I was in college and got my EMT and started volunteering. And then I got hired when I was 24 as career. And, this is what I've done most of my adult life. And that I just have been very aware of how quickly that could change and just to take every opportunity to go and do all the things. Do I wish I would have saved more when I was younger? Yes. What I do regret too, and you hit on this a little bit, is, our generation, I believed that the house and the career, was so important.
Yeah.
And get this house, get this bigger
Yeah.
house, and
Yeah.
none of that matters. And I do think that was definitely a generational thing. Somebody told me one time, you can't expect to have the house that your parents had when they were 40 or 50 when you're 22. That's not a realistic expectation, but for some reason in my mind, it was like, I need to, keep working towards that or whatever. And, a smaller house, I could have taken more
Yeah.
vacations.
Well, that's just an example of the
Yeah.
life that we grew up and what we were told, right? And you were told that, so that's where it came from. So I have to get this. This is success, right? Chase, chase,
Yeah.
chase. And you get there and you grow up, right? And when we say grow up, you hit your 40s and you're like, that wasn't worth it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I came home the other day. So last week in Virginia, one day it was almost 90 degrees.
Oof.
We had 2 days in a row of we broke the broke records. It was like mid 80s, then it was like 88 or something like that. It was gorgeous. It was so wonderful. And then the next day we woke up in the morning, it was in the 70s. By the time I got out of my 10 o'clock meeting at like noon, it had dropped 40 degrees. And by
Wow.
2 o'clock, it was snowing. So
Nice.
anyways, long story short, I pull up, I get home from work and AJ, my husband's in the driveway hollering, "Pack the suitcases, we're moving." He was like, "We we hate this weather now." But yeah, that I digress. Just funny
Get
story.
back to Texas, right? That's where he wants to go.
He wants to be in the like Florida, like he wants to
Yeah.
be in like the
Oh,
Caribbean. Yeah. Yeah.
Caribbean I take now. No,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yes, Caribbean, Florida, somewhere where it's warm, but yeah. So, switching gears a little bit, I also wanted to talk about the regrets of not saying saying your things, saying the feelings or addressing something that bothers you or not repairing a relationship, just any of the regretting having conversations. I think that at the end of the day, not just even at the end of your life,
Yeah.
but just at the end of the day, so many times I can think back to times I wish I would have said something differently or said something at all, or maybe not said something too,
Yeah.
which is part of it. But for me, it's a lot of times is I always think this is how I approach it when I'm thinking about should I say something and I don't know what to say. I think 99% of people in a lot of situations don't know what to say. And so they just don't say anything. So if I have a conversation like that and I know something needs to be said, like I know in my heart, like I need to reach out or I need to say the thing, I approach it as, hey, I don't know what the right thing to say is here, but I want to say something. So, I think that opens the door for some grace there, which is my favorite, value word is grace. So, like, I try to never let that be a regret is saying something that I know needs to be said. Um, even expressing feelings or expressing sorrow or whatever it is, like, hey, I don't know the right thing to say, but I want to say something. And then usually that can open the door to a more comfortable conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one of the things I think about too is that flip side is maybe I should have stayed silent. you know? But hey, sometimes you're made to be that voice for a lot of people, and sometimes I look at people and I'm like, man, how could they just go through and brush things off their shoulder and just keep going like nothing happened? And I'm like, I gotta say something, But hey, like I said, sometimes there needs to be both kinds of people. There need to be all different kinds of people in this world for this thing to work. So, yeah, it's keeping the mouth closed, but yeah, I think one thing we always talk about is having those hard conversations, and it's beyond just the times of grief and sorrow, but it's being able to have the hard conversations as well. And, we talked about that, but not getting to a point where we regret having those hard conversations, and we know they're going to be extremely challenging. It could destroy a relationship, maybe temporarily, maybe forever. But sometimes some things do have to be said, whether it's to put your feelings out there or to try and mend something or try and help. Sometimes things have to be said, and the outcome isn't for us to decide. It's just to put the things out there in the world and say the things that need to be said, and the resolution will come one way or the other. Sometimes I think we just overanalyze some of the things that happen to us and the experiences that we face. And sometimes it's just easy. The simplest resolution is the easiest, and it's the most common sense. but it's again that fear steps in and it keeps us from doing things. And it's, we keep going back to that fear thing, and fear just has this way of just stopping us. And even with hard conversations, with everything, playing it safe, uncomfortable. So it's really becoming aware. I think it's awareness of who we are, how fear shows up in our lives individually. Like, what does that look like? Do you know, Carrie, what fear looks like for you when it shows up for you, when it makes, when making a decision or writing the book or whatever it is? Like, how does fear, do you know it's fear, or how does it show up for you? Could you even articulate that? I don't know. Sometimes
A
that's hard
couple
for me
different
too.
yeah, 100%, it's hard. It's a few different ways for me. I do struggle with anxiety, and I have, for most of my life. And I think it some of it does stem from experiences in the fire service. So, sometimes fear is based on, some traumatic experiences or calls I've been on, stuff like that. But, fear for me usually is the unknown, and as I've gotten older, I don't have that as much,
Yeah.
but, just fear of the unknown, fear of failure. Sometimes I will, and I experience that with, when we go and speak, like, I just don't want to be a failure, and so I have some, nervousness with that. But yeah, usually fear for me shows up as I you should have asked AJ, because he could have told you right away. I get very controlling.
Yeah.
So if I something is going on and I'm fearful or, like, nervous about something, it's usually because it's something out of my control. So I'm gonna control everything else. Everything. Like,
Yes.
everyone's schedules here, like, all the things. And if
Yeah.
everyone is not falling in line with that, and AJ is looking at me like I am a monster, which I am, yes, yeah, we should have just asked him, and he could totally tell you that. He's like, and then he'll just tell me, "Carrie, it's not a big deal. Everything will
Yeah.
work out." And I'm like, "You're right. I know that, but you gotta let me work through this."
Yeah.
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 How about you?
I mean, it's cool. Like I said, it's cool just to have the awareness, right? How it shows
Mhm.
up. I would say similar probably to you. I think control is a big thing, trying to control. But for me, like two things tend to happen is like logic will completely take over my brain. Like if we are looking at other opportunities somewhere else or moving, and like everything makes sense, and we look at all, every aspect, how's this going to work? And it's like, yeah, we can do this. You go to bed, wake up the next morning, and it's like my brain is filled with logic. Like it's immediate, like we can't
Yeah.
do that. No, because of this. And I could put something to it. Like you said, we fear the unknown, right? So the logic is everything that's known. And it's like, well, I know this. If we do this, this could happen, this and this and this. So, like, I start stacking logic on top of logic. And then it just brings it into this position where, well, logically, we can't make that decision, because of here, and I'll back it. And it's funny. We should have had AJ and Nikki come on
Yeah, I
because the
know.
one thing I would do, and she knows it too, is like I get in this research mode where I'll fixate on something, and then I'll just dive into whatever it is and like do an insurmountable amount of research. For a quick example, I'm a coffee nerd, right? So if
Mhm.
like things are happening and like whatever it is, and like fear starts to set in, and I'll lose focus and I'll start researching the next bag of coffee I'm going to buy. And I'll spend 2 days doing that because I got to get the perfect bag, right? It's got to be these perfect flavor notes. And I'll spend so much time doing it. And then finally, like it's almost like I can feel it wear off because then I just hit the buy button. I'm like, what did I just spend the
Right.
last day and a half doing? And it's like, I know what I did. I was ignoring what like my heart was telling me, and I was allowing my brain to take over and just tell me exactly the opposite of what feels right, you know? It's crazy how our bodies it's just crazy how the
Yeah.
mind works and the body. It's like the brain and the heart are two different things, right? And your heart could tell you one thing, and your brain then all of a sudden puts reality and logic into it and takes you down a completely different way that brings you down a way that is not your authentic self, right? That brain will keep you safe and do the things it needs to do, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't allow your heart to take hold of who you are. And I think that's where that's my biggest struggle. And it's like, I know it now. Cool. So now I guess me and you just gotta, maybe we'll keep each other on track when it happens. Like, hey, we got to reel it back in, listen to what's on our heart and chase that, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting how our significant others could probably have pointed it out so clearly and given you an hour episode on that stuff alone, which is awesome.
Well, and sometimes it takes me a minute. It always takes me a minute to, get myself back together, but I'll notice that all of a sudden AJ is like really helping out around the house a lot. And I think he's just trying to like stay out of my way. And he's like, don't poke the bear. And I'm like, oh, thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you. However, you did fold the laundry wrong. All my clothes were put away in the wrong spot,
Yeah.
all the things. No, just kidding. But no, for me that I and y you talk about stacking logic. My brain stacks illogic, like, totally, like, illogical consequences to things, like, the craziest things, like, well, this could happen or this could happen, and it's like my therapist and I would, talk about it before, like, well, so what if that happens? Like, talk through those scenarios. Like, what if that did happen? Oh, okay, well, I guess it wouldn't be that bad. Or like, do you really think deep down that is what's going to happen? Well, no, but it could, and
Yeah.
so it's totally illogical stuff usually, or things that like if it did happen, okay, so you would deal with that. But it's like this total fear of the unknown and this just illogical what if situation that my brain will spiral me into. And it's like, all right, rein it back in, rein it back in. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
let's
it's
see
it's
what.
just
Oh, go ahead.
it's funny how failure just has this way, right? And the fear of the failure, because you look back at your life and I could look back at my life, and like, we have both overcome some insurmountable odds, right? We have both overcome and built a level of resilience within our careers and our personal lives. And you look back at all the challenges that you overcame time and time again. And it's like, you approach a new situation and that fear of failure like just stops you. And it's like, yeah, but look at all these other things that we've overcome throughout our entire life. Like, what makes you think that you're not going to be able to do it in the future? Like, all of a sudden, now it's over. Like, you've
Yeah.
overcome all these things, and now you're thinking of doing this, and you're going to fail at it. Like, it just doesn't equate, And it's just looking back on the things that you've accomplished and overcame. And even if you're younger, one of our younger listeners, like even as a building resilience as a kid and looking back at maybe if it was sports or school and the things you've overcome there, like we start overcoming things very early on in life. And to go back and look should give us the confidence to not let that fear of failure stop us. But it does.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to 25-year-old Kyle?
I think the number one thing for me, and this is just so hard to do as a younger person, but figure out who you really are. I think it's being true to who you really are, like what your heart says you are, and not what the world told you to be, not what your experiences told you to be, but who it's crazy. Like sometimes I look back at high school and, as a kid or early adulthood, and like I said early on, knowing what I know now, would I have gone in the military? Absolutely not, right? But I didn't know what I know now. And it's because I had no idea who I was, right? I had no idea of that. I truly believe everybody's on this earth for a purpose. I think everybody has a unique ability that is different than somebody else's. I know there's a lot of people in this world, but I think there's a uniqueness to everybody. And I think the earlier you can figure that out in life, I think that is what is going to give you your compass. I think that is going to be the thing that is going to keep you from having regrets as you get older, because it's going to constantly be the thing that steers you. I would caution in that I don't think it's a job. I don't think it's a title. I think it's something much deeper than that. I think it's a trait. I think it's I just think it's something so much more than those simple things that we could put titles to, and maybe I just can't explain it well enough or know the words to use it. It's a feeling, right? And it's again, I think we all are called to do something, and I think so many people get steered the wrong way by what our world tells us, what our society tells us, what our experiences tell us, what our traumas tell us. it all is used to steer us in the wrong direction. So I think the earlier it's figure out who you really are, right? Know who you are and be true to that every single day you wake up, and don't let anybody steer you in a different direction, because the world is going to try and steer you away from who you really are every single day and every single second. And I think that's the challenge. And for our younger people, it's do the work and figure it out who you are. And, there's no easy way to do that. But I think having a community of people that are going to challenge you, where you could become extremely introspective and learn what awareness of who you are, learn what the things that you've experienced, how they've shaped you, and just start going and doing that work there. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it. What about you? What would you tell 25-year-old Carrie?
That was beautiful, Kyle. That was just beautiful. I would tell 25-year-old Carrie to love yourself more and to not let other people determine your self-worth. I was very much so, and I still struggle with this, very molded by the people around me, which can be good
Yeah,
and bad. And so, I would try to either lessen myself, or I just spent so much time walking on eggshells around people, because I wanted their approval, or I wanted them to love me, or all of those things, or to fit in, or to, just to feel important, or whatever all those things are. But deep down, it was, I was self conscious and had so much self doubt, and I knew deep down that I had, some really special gifts, but I just couldn't believe in myself enough. It took so long to believe in the gifts that God had given to me and to do something with those, and I knew the fire service was a good fit for me because I got to, care for people, and I loved the EMS part of it, the fire part of it. I love being in the middle of, when people are having crisis, I want to be there to, help fix that. In but I in my personal life and in my professional life, like, I just had so much self-doubt. I just didn't love myself enough. Go back and be like, "Just shake me." Like,
yeah,
"Girl, what are you doing? Don't let people treat you that way." And, like,
yeah.
you're okay. You're doing the right thing." Like, just yeah, that's what I would tell myself. And I think young women today, I watch, my friends that are raising teen women. My golly day, it's a tough world to raise children in right now,
Hmm.
both genders. But like for me, some of these young women are just so much more self-confident.
Yeah,
And the girls are still mean to each other, but I don't know, it just seems different than when I was a teenager. Like, I just see these girls and I'm like, I'm so proud of you. You're
yeah.
just yeah. So, if you're a girl, well, you're a girl dad, but, like,
I
gosh,
am.
that's a
I am.
tough
It is.
it's tough being a boy mom too,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
It's
can
tough being
imagine.
a parent.
It is.
You're
It's
like,
the
"How am I
hardest,
messing
best
them up?"
I know, I think
Right?
that all the
And we're not
time,
gonna
like
know for 20 years from now,
yeah,
right? And then you're gonna
yeah,
realize because 'cause they're gonna tell you, and you're gonna be like, "Ah."
and they're gonna tell you, like, "Well, my therapist says that you did this to me, mom." Thanks, yes, yes, but yeah,
I'll
and
own it. I'll own it,
yeah.
though. So,
Yeah,
you
we're doing
know,
the best we can, right?
yeah, we
We're doing the best we can. Let's see, what other regrets are commonly do people commonly let's see, we've talked about some professional stuff, some personal stuff, saying the hard things, the feelings. Uh, Anything else? Any other big regrets?
yeah, I don't know. I don't
Money, money. I wish I woulda saved more. We're saving, my
yeah.
husband is a big saver, thank goodness. He saves me there because I would just let's just go on all vacations, all the vacations. Yeah, stop worrying about what people think. That's so hard for me, putting things off. But yeah, and
Yeah, there's so
you ta
much, yeah.
you talked about too the logical stuff, and I meant to say this earlier too. Like sometimes for our listeners too, and we're not saying like any crazy idea you should just
Right.
jump off and do
Right.
it,
Yeah,
right?
we're not saying
Like,
that.
yeah, because I think nowadays, I think a lot of the message is don't wait, go do, like,
Right.
live your dreams. Yes, please, please find a way to live your dreams. But sometimes that means waiting until it is the right time. Like, so for me, like, at this point in my career, and you're the same way, I'm sure, like, I can retire in 4 years and 1 month. Like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't now leave my job and leave behind an amazing pension, run off and join the ballet. That's which is
Right.
definitely my mom said I was the worst ballerina when I was, like, 5 ever. Yeah, we're not saying that, like, yes, please weigh all the things, but I meant to bring that up earlier. Sometimes you do have to listen to logic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, the more responsibilities you have, especially as a parent, as a spouse, like that changes the game. There's a lot of decisions my wife and I talk about. Like, yeah, if we didn't have kids, sure, we would have done this, this, and this. But like, we have responsibilities now. It's not life isn't just about you anymore. Every decision we make affects every decision I make affects 3 people immediately, so it's you have to weigh that in, and you can't selfishly start making decisions, especially as you become a spouse, especially as you become a parent, because those have real repercussions as well. Yeah. It's I think before we got on, we talked about the lie of balance. And it's almost like what we talked about with Sam last week, because
Yeah,
he broke down
that
work-life
work-life
balance.
balance, yeah.
And he made some sense of that to me where maybe I didn't look at it like that before, which was
Mhm.
cool. But when we look at, regret and we look at having balance in life, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, like it's not balanced, and every day it shifts and it changes. And it's putting ourselves where, like, no matter what we're doing, whether it's our career, whether it's our home life. And I think that's the key when I think about becoming who you truly are, like what your heart tells you, because then you belong in every environment that you put yourself in. And if we have this false self of who we are, you can find yourself in a lot of environments where you're not supposed to be. And that's when we strive for that balance. Like if you have a need that you want to feel balanced in your work life balance, if you feel like you have a need where you need your life balance from personal family time and all that, like we need this balance, there's probably something wrong. And that's kind of what I took away last week too. And it was just very interesting because when we look at regret and we look at these things and we're trying to achieve X, Y, and Z and balance this all out, it's like, well, maybe that in and of itself is telling us something, that we are living a life that we're not meant to, my purpose isn't being fulfilled. I have more to give, and this isn't it, because I don't feel like everything is just kosher, right? I feel like I need this balance, and if I need this balance, something is off. So, maybe it's the goal is to not feel a need for a balance. I don't know. I'm just talking about what we learned last week and
Yeah,
just some of the stuff, and it's just very interesting.
yeah,
There's so much to regret. Oh man, oh, uh, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot, you can look at it professionally too when we look at regrets and, should you have gone for a promotion or not? Or should you have, spent the amount of time or not? And there's just so much. There's so much. And there's going to come a day where the game ends for you, right? There it is. And are you going to be okay with the man or woman that you set out to be? And, those are the questions. And we're all going to have to face that one day. And hopefully you're doing the things, right? I don't know.
yeah, for me, like, professionally, I regret what and I can't even say I regret, it's the way that my professional career kind of turned out is when I got promoted to battalion chief, I wish I could have been a captain on an engine a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved that position, and I was still growing in it, and I was at a point where I felt really comfortable in it, and I felt really good about it, and I wanted to keep doing it, but the opportunity to go for promotion for battalion at the time, it was one of those I almost couldn't pass it up because
Yeah.
we promoted several battalion chiefs all at one time due to a restructure in our org chart, and it was like one of those, like, I knew I knew I would be okay, and I knew I would, I assess well and I interview well, so I was like, "Oh," and I felt like, you know, I wanna be a captain longer, but I don't wanna miss this opportunity. So it was one of those, you gotta weigh the things, and then, I got promoted to battalion, and it's just a way of how all things kind of work out, and then I was going through a divorce, and I ended up on days, so that worked out, well for me, but now I'm married to AJ, who is on shift work, and now we cannot work on shift work together. So one of us has to stay, one of us has to be on days or work opposite shifts. So my big regret is that, I've had to be in administration for so long, and I
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go back out to ops, but you know what? For our family, that's what somebody had to do, and
Yeah.
so that's what we're doing. And you know what? At the end of the day, I won't regret that I did
Right.
something for my family, that I
Yeah.
did I won't regret that. So, yeah. All right, well, let's leave our listeners with something to ponder. What and I don't even know that I have an answer for this. I'm gonna have to think about this and come back maybe in the beginning of our next episode. What is one thing that if it didn't change and stayed the same in 10 years, you'd regret? So, like, one thing right now that you have going on, that you're doing, that you're involved in, that you're part of, that you have one thing that if it didn't change and in 10 years, you'd regret it. So, we'll leave our listeners with that, unless you've got any other bombs you wanna drop on us, because some of that was pretty good today, Kyle.
No, I think that's good. I already know my answer to that
Oh,
question.
okay. All right.
In 10 years, if I'm still living in Illinois, I'm gonna regret that.
Okay,
I
fair
will tell
enough. Yes.
hands down, like, that's it. That
Yeah.
that is for many reasons.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that would be especially in 10 years, oh, yeah. Yeah, we better be out of here in 10 years. Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about it. I'm
that was a
pretty
that was a toss-up. Thank you for that one. That was a
yeah.
softball.
You yeah. Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm so happy with the way we're so blessed here, and I'm very happy with the way, our everything is going. But there are definitely things in 10 years. I hope I'm retired, and I hope Nick is somewhere, in a successful little life he's starting, and I'm living on a boat or somewhere warm, and you you can come visit me. But yeah, but no, I'm gonna think about that because I know there's something I'm sure that would be a big deal in 10 years if it was staying the same. So, but yeah. All
Very
right.
cool. Yeah, well, give us your answers. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what everybody's got to say. Drop it in the comments and all our places. We'll get back to you and start a. I think this is a great conversation to have. So hit us up. Let us know what you think, where you're at, and we'll keep this regret conversation going. I think it's a great conversation to have. I really do. So
Yeah. I think it's good. Like we talk about, you revisit your values, every so often. To me, this was something, on my heart that I wanted to just think about and talk out loud with. And Kyle is just basically a free therapist for me. And we just talk out loud
feelings
like
mutual.
we just talk out loud about, like, is there anything I would regret? Like, or what
Yeah,
have I regretted in just talking all that out loud. So it all, we are a leadership podcast, but we are in all things human being podcast.
yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time.